Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 49 of the World of Sports podcast. I am your host, Diego Sandoval. Joined with me, as always, is my co-host, Logan Ring. Logan, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody?
I see you've got some decorations up in your home studio.
I put up 3. One has already fallen, but I'll put that back up. It's a start, at least.
It's a start. It's a beginning. But looks great back there.
Just a little crooked.
Again, episode number 49. It's going to be kind of a lighter episode. We're in the season end of summer where it's only baseball going on, which is great. We love baseball over here. But for our podcast, that is baseball, basketball, and football, it's not the best. But I will be giving our top 10 running backs rankings. We did quarterbacks last week. Next week, we're going to do receivers and maybe tight ends. There are like maybe 5 or 6 good tight ends in the NFL, which is kind of sad, but that's just the position is super, super weak. But definitely we're going to do wide receivers next week. And then we'll probably do an NFL power rankings before the season begins. So yeah, top 10 running backs. As we enter, this will be the final week of the preseason, and then teams will get a week off, and then it will be the beginning of the regular season. Exciting stuff. And like I said, it's a light episode. So the only other thing we're really going to spend some time on is the NL wildcard race, because we talked about the playoff push last week, but this is one that has changed every day, it seems like. Since then, the NL wildcard race is going to be a very good one to look at going forward. And then maybe a little bit of NBA news. There's really only one piece of news. We're going to save it for later. Maybe tease you. You probably know what it's about. But yeah, should be a fun episode. As always, follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, they will be linked down below. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can just look us up on any of those platforms and we should pop up. But yeah, let's get right into it with our top 10 running backs. Again, if you're new, I'm going to be carrying the bulk of the NFL content, I guess you could say. But there's one guy in here that I'm sure Logan would like to comment on, but we'll get to him in a little bit. At number 10, I have Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor. He is coming off a very good rookie year where he rushed for 1,169 rushing yards and had 11 rushing touchdowns, which is great for a rookie running back. Rookie running backs, with the exception of absolute superstars, usually ease their way into the league just because it's a very hard position to learn right away at the NFL level. But he came in and played really well. That backfield had a little bit of injury problems last year, but he showed that he can be one of the best running backs in this league. And the year 1 to year 2 leap, really in every single sport, is always a big one. I mean, and it could go either way. It could go really well or it could go really poorly. I think it's going to go really well. This guy's got a great team around him, a great offensive line. I think bringing in Carson Wentz to Indianapolis really helps him out, makes that offense a bit more two-dimensional. But I mean, Jonathan Taylor's got everything you could want in a workhorse running back. He's good rushing. He's good receiving. He can punch it in at the goal line. He can break away for big plays. So there's no reason for me thinking that he's going to take a step back in his second season, because we just don't see that too often from high caliber running backs. So I think that he takes a step forward. And I think he is a top 10 running back this year at number 10. Moving on to number 9, a guy who I think is kind of overlooked when you're talking about the best running backs in the NFL, and that is Austin Ekeler of the Los Angeles Chargers. He is one of the best, if not the best, receiving backs in the league, and I think that's why he kind of gets overlooked, because he won't put up necessarily 1,000-yard rushing seasons like pretty much all of the rest of these guys on this list will, but he'll put up 1,000-yard receiving season, which is so valuable from the running back position. Justin Herbert showed that he's going to be a top talent in the league in the years to come. And Ekeler, last year he was banged up a little bit. I think we're going to see a really good, full, healthy season from him. I saw an interview with him the other day. Seems like he's ready to go. Um, and the main reason why I have Ekeler at number 9 is because the Chargers just got a new coach who used to coach for the New Orleans Saints. And if you don't know, the New Orleans Saints running back is Alvin Kamara, who is higher on this list for me and for everybody else. But it seems like Austin Ekeler will play an Alvin Kamara type role with the Chargers, which, I mean, if you're getting that many targets, amount of targets Kamara got, your potential is through the roof as a running back. I think he's primed for a breakout in that Kamara-like role. So I have him at number 9. Number 8, I have a guy who is, to use one of Logan's favorite words, underrated. It's Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. And I don't think anybody ever doubts his talent, but I think he's only underrated because he's part of an offense that already has Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. So when you think of the Packers, do you think of the elite pass offense that they have, which, don't get me wrong, that's probably their best trait as a team. But Aaron Jones has quietly been one of the best running backs in the NFL over the past 3 seasons. In 2019, he led the league in touchdowns. The last 2 seasons, he's rushed for over 1,000 yards in each season. He's putting up the same numbers as all these guys, but when you are talking about the best running backs, his name never seems to come up, which is interesting to me because, you'd think that any running back that's in a high-powered offense is going to get recognition. But I feel like because that offense is so pass happy, he doesn't get his recognition. And, I think that's what part of makes him so great is he's in an offense that's very pass heavy. And he's one of the most, I think for the last 2 seasons, he's been the most efficient running back in terms of yards per carry in the NFL. So when he gets his opportunities, he's making the most of it. I mean, you're putting up 1,100 rushing yards in an offense where you're the second, maybe even third option. Like that's elite numbers right there. So I think if Aaron Jones is in another offense where he's the number 1 guy, he could be up in the top 5. But because he's so overlooked, I feel like people don't really think of him as a top 10 running back. But I mean, I think he's going to have another 1,100 rushing yard season where he could be up there in touchdowns again. Like I said, he led the league in 2019. He's just a great talent, and I think he's a perfect fit for that offense where he's a guy that will, make the most of his opportunities, even if it's not that many in the offense. So Aaron Jones at number 8 for me. At number 7 is a really tough guy for me to rank because he missed all of last season. He played in the first game and that was it. Or maybe I think he got hurt in the second game, maybe. But that's Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants. He tore his ACL in 2020. And I mean, an ACL tear, we've seen plenty of guys bounce back from it because it's nothing. It's not as bad as like an Achilles or, something of that nature, but it still raises a lot of question marks this year. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's one of the most talented running backs in the league. I mean, he just has all of the physical attributes. He has the quads. He has everything you could ever want from a running back. In his 2 seasons before the injury, he had 1,300 rushing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. Again, great seasons behind one of the worst O lines in the NFL. In the NFL, and I think that a lot of that is the reason why he's at number 7 on my list. Is he's just not in a good situation in New York. I don't see them moving on from him at all because he's the cornerstone of their franchise. But Saquon Barkley, I feel like 7 is a fair assessment of him going into this season. Again, he has potential to be a top 2, maybe even the best running back in the league. But I think the question mark surrounding that offense and surrounding his ACL, whether or not he'll even be able to suit up week 1, is what puts him at number 7 for me. But there's no doubt about it. The talent is there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up higher on my list at the end of the season. Moving on to number 6, another tough guy to rank because of a tough year last year, but you can't really attribute it entirely to him, and that's Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys. He did not play well last year with Dak Prescott out. That whole offense looked really bad. I talked about Dak in last week's episode. If you want to know my thoughts on him and that offense going into this season, go check out that episode. But Zeke is, I couldn't put him lower than 6 because we've seen him lead the league in rushing yards twice in 2016 and 2018. And yes, that is, 3 years ago, but I mean, he's proven that he's established himself as an elite running back in the NFL. He's had 2 double-digit touchdown seasons, which if you don't know, as a running back, the double-digit touchdown mark is what you want to hit. And I think he's primed for another great year like in 2016 and 2018. That offense is going to be scary. It always is. That defense has question marks. It always does. But Zeke Elliott is a guy that has all the talent in the world. It's just really depends on the situation around him. And it sounds like out of Cowboys camp, everyone is healthy. Everyone's, on the right trajectory for week 1. So Ezekiel Elliott, I think, is going to have a bounce back season, and he lands at number 6 on my list. Now at number 5 is a guy that Logan may have stuff to say about him because he plays for his favorite team, and that's Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I'm not going to call him underrated because he's starting to get what he deserved. He was a couple seasons ago, but I mean, he just produces. Two seasons ago, he ran for 1,500 yards. Last year, he had another 1,000-yard season, 12 touchdowns last year. I think he could be a lot better, but they have a 2 running back system in Cleveland with Kareem Hunt. And you can't mention Nick Chubb without mentioning the fact that he's running behind one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in football. But I mean, he's just a workhorse. He'll go out and get you 100 to 150 yards a game, no questions asked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very, very casual fan. I want to say that before I say anything. So I'm not going to go into like a bunch of statistics and stuff, but he's just so fun to watch. And he's some guy who's just, you can count on every single time you give him the ball. He basically gives you 5 or 6 yards every time. And that gets you out of a lot of jams. I mean, Baker Mayfield is good, but we're still a running team. So we still rely on him and Kareem Hunt a lot, and sharing the ball with Kareem Hunt and still having 1,000 or plus yards. I mean, in a season where you play 12 games, that's really impressive. And yeah, he just always seems to make like a big play every single game. He's just so exciting to watch. And even through contact, he'll give you the extra yard or 2. I mean, he's one of my favorite players. I watch all the games. So, I mean, he's super exciting, but yeah, I'm glad he's at least top 5. I mean, I couldn't even tell you who's top 4 here. So, I mean, I'm glad he's there, but yeah, I'm just really excited for next season, and he's always so fun to watch.
Yeah, and with the new 17 game format, there's a legitimate opportunity for him to be one of the guys that rushes for 2,000 yards. And we don't say that often. It doesn't happen really. I mean, it's going to happen more frequently with the extra game added on. But Nick Chubb is just a true workhorse running back in the NFL. And like you said, to do it with another guy who's a, above average to great caliber running back, that just shows how good he is and how efficient he is when he runs the ball. Moving on to number 4, I think Nick Chubb could be put in the same tier, but I think they're maybe slightly above. These couple guys are slightly above Chubb, and that's Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. He's if Nick Chubb is a workhorse, Dalvin Cook is a workhorse times 2. He does everything Nick Chubb does by him. He does everything Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook, or Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt do, as one person. Last year he rushed for 1,500 yards, had 360 receiving yards, 17 total touchdowns. He's on the field every play for the Vikings. That's a solid passing offense, but really it runs through Cook. And there's not much else to say about him other than, he's a true number one running back who is going to go out and win you games. If you're a fantasy football player, he's going to win you fantasy football seasons. He's that good. He's got the perfect mix of rushing, receiving, and touchdown totals that you want from a running back. So he's one of the elites for sure. Moving on to number 3, it was tough for me to put him over Cook, but just because of how multifaceted he is, I have Alvin Kamara at number 3. He's up having, up near 1,000 receiving and 1,000 rushing every season. He had 21 total touchdowns in 2020, which 21 touchdowns for a running back. I think the splits it was almost even between receiving and rushing, which, I mean, the Saints, the way they use him, he's in the backfield, obviously, a lot of the time, but he'll go line up as a wide receiver and catch routes and be just as good as any other wide receiver in the league. And I think that is so valuable. And that's one of the main reasons why I have him at number 3 over a guy like Cook or Chubb. He's just so talented in so many different ways. He can do so much for that New Orleans offense. And I think he's going to have one of his best seasons of his career this year. Michael Thomas is going to be out for the majority of the first half, or pretty much the whole first half. And Jameis Winston just got named starter for them. I think that's great for Alvin Kamara. It would have been Taysom Hill, and Hill would have taken away a lot of rushing opportunities. But Kamara, he's just so dynamic in the way that he produces for the Saints. It's hard not to put him in the top 3 because there's no running back except for the guy that I have number 1 that can do what he does on the receiving end. So yeah, Kamara at 3 for me. Number 2 and number 1, honestly, I wouldn't be mad if you interchange these guys. It just depends on how you look at it. At number 2, though, I have Tennessee Titans running back Derrick Henry. He's just an absolute tank on the field. You're gonna tell me you're gonna try to tackle a guy running a 4.5 4.6 40 at 240 pounds in pads. Yeah, good luck. Like, Derrick Henry, the last 2 seasons, has led the league in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. He had 1,500 yards 2 years ago. Last year, he was a 2,000-yard rusher. I mean, praise everything. If the MVP wasn't a quarterback award, he would have had the MVP last year. But as we know, the MVP always goes to a quarterback. Which is stupid. But anyways, I mean, the last 2 seasons, 16 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns. The only knock on Derrick Henry, which I think is the main reason why he's not number 1 for me, is that he is not a very good receiving running back. He's not going to leave the backfield and catch a bunch of passes for you. He'll get one here and there, but with the way that offense works, it's ground and pound Derrick Henry. Just shove him down your throat until you can't handle it anymore. And not a lot of defenses can handle it. And I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be mad if you had him at your number 1 spot. But Derrick Henry, he's the ultimate just ground and pound running back. He'll get you, if you hand the ball off to him 3 times in a row, he'll get the first down every time. If they really wanted to, they just hand the ball every time. And if fatigue wasn't a thing, they'd be unstoppable. But yeah, Derrick Henry at number 2. And that leaves me with my number 1 running back in the NFL. You can probably guess who it is. It's Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers. He didn't play. Again, there's question marks. Nobody really has question marks around him going into this season. He missed, I think he played in 3 games last year with a couple different injuries. Thankfully, they weren't like torn ACL type of injuries. They were just things that kind of lingered over the season, got him fixed in the offseason. I think he said he's 100% full health to go this season. In 2019, he had almost 1,400 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards and 19 total touchdowns. That's elite production. If you get over 1,000 yards, both rushing and receiving, just think about it like this. A running back season where you rush over 1,000 yards is considered elite. A receiving season, a wide receiver season where you get over 1,000 receiving yards is considered elite. Christian McCaffrey did both in 2019. He's done both his entire career. I mean, he led the league in 2019 in touches and yards from scrimmage. Nobody gets more yards than Christian McCaffrey, and guess what the most important stat in football is? Yards. I mean, he does everything. He's Alvin Kamara times 10. He's not going to bulldoze and ground and pound like Derrick Henry does, but the way that he can take over a game and just take over any situation, whether it be catching the ball, running the ball, there's nobody close to him. Like I said, Chris McCaffrey and Derrick Henry could be interchangeable, but in terms of how good he is at both things, at rushing and receiving, there's nobody close to him. Nope. I've never seen a running back like him. Most people haven't. He's just so good at everything. There's not much else you can say about Christian McCaffrey. You won't find a hole in his game. He's fast. He can break tackles. He can catch. He can run. It's everything you could want in a running back put into a little white guy who's smaller than 6 feet tall. I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, that's all I got on Christian McCaffrey. And those are my top 10 running backs. Again, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Ekeler, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Nick Chubb, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, and Christian McCaffrey. A post will be going up soon. Most likely, we're filming this on Friday, August 27th. It'll probably go up tomorrow, Saturday, August 28th. Again, roast me. I got a good amount of comments on the quarterback one. People were nice enough. They just had their suggestions. But, I'm sure people will have more problems with this list, as people usually do. But yeah, that's all I got for my top 10 running backs. Let's move on to, before we get into the second thing that we're really going to talk about, let's talk about a little piece of NBA news that I know Logan wants to talk about. So I'll let you take the floor.
All right. Well, I woke up this morning and I was really surprised because I was not expecting anything. But the Cavs just signed Lauri Markkanen to a 4-year, $67 million deal with a sign and trade with Chicago. They sent Larry Nance to Portland, and then I think Portland sent Derrick Jones Jr. to the Bulls. So both those teams got like a little piece. Larry Nance is actually a really good player. I mean, he's really solid. He does basically everything. So for Portland, I mean, good for them. And then
still not going to win anything.
The Bulls weren't going to sign Lauri Markkanen anyway, so they got something out of it. But I'm a Cavs fan, so this news is like really big for me because we just don't sign anybody, and a young player like Lauri Markkanen, it's exciting. It's also really scary to me because the way our roster is constructed is, I mean, I don't know how it's going to work out. No one knows how it's going to work out. We just drafted Evan Mobley and then signed Jarrett Allen to a 5-year, $100 million deal.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, you want to play both those guys. I don't know who's going to be the sixth man, to be honest, because you cannot put Lowry at the 3 or something. He is not fast enough for that. And then we got Sexland at the 1 and 2. Isaac Okoro, I want to start at the 3. So one of those 3 guys, I think it might end up being Evan Mobley. Might have to come off the bench, which, I mean, he's going to be developing this year anyway. But yeah, it's pretty weird. I'm going to pull up the Lauri Markkanen stats, but he's a really young player. He's been kind of disappointing for a couple years, but he's shown a lot of promise, and he's a stretch 4 too. Terrible at defense, but I mean, if you're getting him there for shooting and things like that, I would love to have him play alongside a guy like Jarrett Allen. I think that's a great duo because of how good defensively he is. And then Evan Mobley, maybe in the future too. It just scares me that the 3 of them can definitely not play together, but I mean, Jarrett Allen can probably only play the 5. And if Evan Mobley and Lauri Markkanen kind of switch off a little bit and Evan Mobley takes those center minutes from Jarrett Allen, I could see it working. But the man averaged 13.5 points per game last season. In his second season, he almost averaged 19, but he's shooting 48% from the field and 40% from 3. So that's really good production. He didn't get the opportunity with the Bulls. And he's come out and said that he wanted to leave really bad. And like he chose to go to Cleveland. So it's exciting because he wants to play there. I'm sure he discussed with the front office what's going to happen. I feel like he wouldn't want to have signed if he's not going to be promised that starting spot. So Evan Mobley, I mean, he might have to come off the bench now. But hey, I mean, we'll see what happens. I really like the shooting from him in the offense. And I mean, defensively, our front court is already really good. But yeah, it's exciting to see because, I mean, a 4-year deal he's 23 years old right now. And he's a really good stretch four. He's got a lot of promise, but we'll see what happens because the roster construction on this team is confusing at least. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it's really confusing.
Yeah, I didn't even think of where he was going to fit because I forgot about Evan Mobley. And I feel like when they drafted him, everyone just kind of assumed he would just slip right in there.
Yeah, and it's already kind of a weird fit with Jarrett Allen because it's naturally a 5.
This kind of messes it all up almost.
Yeah.
Like he comes in and does this. And the one thing you didn't mention that I wanted to was this messes with the contract situation.
Yep.
And they've got 2 young, promising guards who look like they've been progressing each year they've been in the league. Sure, they want to re-sign them, but bringing in a guy like Lauri Markkanen for a good chunk of money kind of tells you that they're going to have to move on from at least one of them.
Yeah, and I mean, the front office is pretty clear that they want to keep Darius Garland, and I don't know if they're going to give either of them a max. I really hope not. I mean, maybe, but I think they'd have to give them like 20 mil each if they were able to keep both of them. And if you have that much like wrapped up, you're paying basically all of our starters $20 million. I mean, you don't really have a lot of financial room to do anything, to be honest. So it's a little scary. But I mean, we're trying to make the playoffs, and with a really young team, I love bringing in more young guys. So I want to see how it works out. Kevin Love, I mean, I don't even know if he's going to play, to be honest. I mean, if we already have the 4 and 5 set up, like I feel bad. I mean, Kevin Love, he wanted to stay in Cleveland. He wants to be out now, obviously, but he signed that 4-year deal. When it happened, I was really confused. He's still got 2 more years. We're paying him $60 million over the next 2 years. That's a really tough contract to trade. I mean, that's a negative asset. So we'll see what we have to give up. But if he gets bought out or what, I don't know. Hopefully, I actually really do like the mentorship that he can offer to Lauri Markkanen because they're not the same player at all.
They're pretty
stretch
similar.
4 like that. It is really interesting to see. Kevin Love is a lot more physical than he is, but it's still exciting as a stretch 4. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, interesting news at least.
Very interesting. That is the word I would use as well. But like I said earlier, not really nothing NBA wise is going to be of note in the next couple of weeks until preseason starts up and, we get all that going. But the last thing we wanted to talk about was the National League wildcard race. So one spot we know is secured. And that's either going to be the Giants or the Dodgers, depending on what happens in that division. Right now, the Dodgers are 2.5 back. I'm wearing my Braves hat right now because I am a Braves fan this weekend. Giants are playing the Braves. Dodgers are playing the Rockies. But right now, the Dodgers are 11.5 up of the first wildcard spot. Nobody's catching them. But as of right now, Friday, August 27th, the Reds with a record of 70-59 are 2 games above the Padres with a record of 68-61. And I mean, the Phillies have not looked good recently. Neither of the Mets. The Cardinals are 4.5 back. Maybe. I don't really see it happening. I see it being either the Reds, or the Padres. So I just watched the Padres as they had a 3-game series against the Dodgers. Dodgers swept it. And I tweeted out, my tweet was, wow, the Padres have really turned into a mediocre team throughout the course of this season. Because let's be honest, they have. They're 68-61. That's not too far from 500. And they just have not looked like the team that we all expected them to be. Just watching that series, I don't know if it's moving him to the outfield. I don't know if the injuries and just having weeks at a time off got to him, but Fernando Tatis, even though he's still the MVP favorite, he's not playing with the Fernando Tatis energy that we've seen. In game 2 of the series that went 16 innings, he had a game tying 2-run home run in the bottom of the 15th, and he didn't look excited about it. He hit the home run and was jogging around like he was relieved. Like I'm pretty sure it was like his first hit in like 20 plate appearances or something. But you expect him to bat flip and just go crazy and get the crowd into it. But he just like silently jogged around, like he had this expression on his face where it was kind of like, thank God almost, rather than let's go. And it's weird to me. I don't know. It's not what you expect when you watch the Padres.
Yeah, it's such an exciting team, and it just hasn't been even close to that recently. They're 2-8 in their last 10, but really since the All-Star break, they have not been good. They've been a below average team. And yeah, I mean, they've had a really hard schedule, but also like they had a pretty easy schedule to start the season
Right.
too. So I mean, every team's going to play that. Like the Dodgers are going to have the same schedule basically, and they've been consistently great, and it kind of just shows the real like difference between these teams. The Giants and Dodgers are going to be fighting for that one spot, but yeah, the rest is really interesting. I mean, I don't think the Padres are making the playoffs, and I would bet a lot of money they were going to make the playoffs at the start of this season. And the Reds, I mean, we haven't even talked about them. I mean, they've been good, but really it's just been consistently wild card production. Like they've been solid,
they've
but
been an
not
okay
like,
team.
yeah, like they've been an average wild card team, and it's not like they're going off. I mean, they're 6-4 in their last 10, and they've basically been doing that the whole season. The Padres have just, I don't even know what happened. It's just not been exciting at all. Their offense has been terrible. I think the last like 3-4 games or whatever, I saw a stat they're batting like 9 for 110 or something.
They had like 7 hits in the 3-game series against the Dodgers. So the Dodgers, that game was 16 innings. They had a stretch from the 5th to the 15th inning without a hit. They got no hit in 10 innings.
That's more than getting no hit in a game. I mean, that you shouldn't be the Padres and do that. And their pitching has not been good either. It's just been a bad team. It's just been not good. And I mean, I have like the playoff percentages based on like everything, all the statistics go into it. They have a 20% chance to make the playoffs now.
Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy.
We're at a point in the season where I'm not surprised if the Padres fall out of the playoffs. And they
already are.
If the Padres like don't even reach the playoffs. At the beginning of the season, I think it was Dodgers, Padres, Yankees for the odds to win the World Series. And to say one of those teams is going to miss the playoffs, that's crazy. What? Like, I don't know. You mentioned the pitching has been terrible. Yeah, they've been hit with a couple injuries here or there, but so has every other contender, and they've dealt with it. The Dodgers have been missing Kershaw, Urias, and Bauer, Mookie. But in terms of pitching, I think Bauer's out of the picture. And yeah, Mookie just came back for the Dodgers, and they've still won. What is it? I think it's now like 13 of their last 14 or something, like without pretty much their best position player. I think anyone would say when healthy, Mookie Betts is their best position player. And I think that just shows the difference between a true, contender and a team that's a fringe playoff team, is the depth that you can provide when you're hit with injuries, because it's bound to happen. No team stays healthy the entire season. So at this point, it's kind of I don't like the argument that, we're hurt. Like, yeah, it can be used to an extent, but also you got to get to a point where it's like, okay, maybe our team isn't that good if we can't deal with injuries.
Right. And I don't even put the Padres in the same, like close to the same tier as the Dodgers or Giants. Like, I'm not even trying to compare them just because they're not even close right now. Like, I'm comparing them to the Reds, and it's not like the Reds are a bad team, but you got to be better than them if you're like a favorite to win the World Series. You got the MVP probably on your team. So it's really disappointing, honestly, because I love watching them play. They're so exciting. But like, I tried to watch that game that was 16 innings. I mean, I watched the start of it. They didn't look fun. I mean, I don't know. It's just not been good recently.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, the Reds are playing like a wild card team, but I actually sat down and watched a Reds game the other day because it was on MLB Network, and I was like, okay, if this is the team the Dodgers face, I want to see, what it looks like. And they are playing like the Padres should be in terms of, not in terms of the skill level of their players, but just with the energy and with the swag. Joey Votto has looked like an MVP just out of nowhere in the second half. Nicholas Castellanos is phenomenal for the game of baseball. Jesse Winker's great. Shout out to Alex Mooseberger, predicted at the beginning of the season that Jonathan India would be the National League Rookie of the Year, and he's putting up National League Rookie of the Year numbers. 275, 852 OPS, 17 home runs. They've got 2 starters with over 10 wins. It's a wild card team, yes, but they just look like the better team than the Padres, which is crazy.
Shout out Tyler Naquin too. I miss you on the Indians. Every time an Indians player leaves, they do great, and he's been so good. The Reds are fun. Like, I don't want to discredit their success because they deserve to be a wild card team the way that they've been playing. So, yeah, great for them. I mean, I'm excited to see what they do in the playoffs. If that's the matchup between them and the Dodgers, I think pretty much everyone's going to predict the Dodgers, but I still expect it to be an exciting game. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not going to count the Padres out. They're 2 games back, but they still have to play the Giants. I think they have to play the Dodgers again.
They play the Giants 10 times.
10 times.
10 more times. And I think it's one more series against the Dodgers.
Yeah. And then the Braves. And that's none of those are going to be easy. So it's going to be tough for them.
I'm hoping the Padres do well against the Giants, obviously as a Dodgers fan, but I don't see them doing well against the Giants. Just it's that simple, and I don't know if anybody would have ever predicted this.
No.
It was everybody's expectation that this would be a phenomenal division, but not in the way that it's become a phenomenal division. But yeah, that's baseball for you, if we're being completely honest. It's very different than other sports when it comes to stuff like this. It's much more likely that there's going to be an unlikely outcome, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. We got about a month left, month and a week of regular season. We'll see. So yeah, that's all we got for you today. This was episode 49. We went over our top 10 running backs, talked about the Lauri Markkanen sign and trade with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then went into the NL wildcard race between the Padres and the Reds, and just how those 2 teams have looked as of late and how it's going to look down the stretch for both of them. As always, follow us on all of our social medias. Go ahead and comment or roast me on my top 10 running backs list. I accept all your comments with open arms. But yeah, this has been a fun one. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. And for my co-host, Logan Ring, my name is Diego Sandoval, signing off.
Signing off.